At Gonzaga, Jalen Suggs was an all-around threat who solidified himself as a top 5 pick, but how high can he actually go? This is Floor and Ceiling. Let's break him down. Whether it's on the basketball court or the football field, Jalen Suggs has been a winner all of his life. He was a top prospect in both sports before committing to the Gonzaga Bulldogs to play college hoops. There, Suggs mixed his own winning pedigree with Gonzaga's history of success to great effect. Suggs played a pivotal part on a Bulldogs team that went undefeated for the entire year until their very last game. Despite a disappointing end, that should not overshadow his NBA potential. At 6'4", 205 pounds with a wingspan around 6'5", Suggs' mix of athleticism, intelligence, and most of all, just flat out winning, has the potential to be transformative for the NBA franchise he ends up in. On the offensive end of the floor, Jalen Suggs is at his best in transition right now. Suggs is an elite athlete with speed, power, and explosiveness. He runs the floor with ease and is a complete menace when he is getting downhill. If Suggs is coming at you with a head of steam, then watch out. In the open court, Suggs can either run, catch, and finish, or more appealingly, he can lead the break himself. He is a danger in grab-and-go situations as he can hurry the ball up the length of the court and then come up with some pretty creative finishes. Here against Auburn, he gets the defensive rebound, makes his defender look like a fool with the Euro step, and calmly finishes off the glass. Or, here versus Kansas, Suggs first comes over to help in the post, rips the ball away, and banks in the goofy step layup under control. NCAA defenders found it nearly impossible to deter Suggs on a consistent basis in transition. He simply overwhelmed them using his package of burst and creativity. The only surefire way to stop Suggs was by fouling him, which is often what ended up happening. Suggs shot 1 free throw per every 3 shot attempts, which is a decent figure for a freshman, but I think can be even better taking his talent into account. Predictably, Suggs' passing also comes alive in transition. The Gonzaga guard is a fantastic passer whose playmaking should not be overlooked just because of his physical talent. In fact, it is the mix of athleticism and IQ that ultimately makes Suggs such an appealing prospect. He has the ability to take his team up the floor in a matter of moments by making snappy, correct decisions. Suggs is a great decision maker in the open court because he can look up and quickly recognize what the right read is. He can hit runners filling the lanes, thread the needle through defenses to find his teammates under the basket, or make something out of seemingly nothing with his outlet passes. This pass against Auburn was my favorite of his all season. Suggs is first to the long rebound and just sort of taps it over his own head to lead the break. Against Kansas, Suggs attacks before the Jayhawks defense is set. Maybe this is not completely in transition, but it is a similar scenario as he collapses the D and hits Timmy with the dump pass. Finally, versus Santa Clara, Suggs gets the defensive rebound and then fires a pinpoint bounce pass across his body and across the length of the court. Overall, Suggs is relentless putting pressure on the opponent's basket. As we saw, that can involve leading the break with his finishing or passing, but the same situation can also arise in a half-court setting. The part of the game that Suggs is most comfortable with right now is attacking the rim. This goes back to his makeup as a player. Strong, quick, explosive, crafty. All of those adjectives fit Suggs to a T. When he drives downhill, the easy part for him is beating his defender with his great first step, but after that, Suggs also has a tight handle, can go left or right, has shown the ability to contort his body, and once again, can come up with shrewd finishes at the basket. Here versus Kansas, it's the sudden change of speed. Suggs slows down for a brief moment and then just explodes to the rim. In fact, his game against the Jayhawks is a good example of what Suggs can do as a whole. He makes driving look simple because he can turn the corner with extreme ease, but then it's the craftiness on display with the reverse finishes. Because Suggs is so forceful getting to the rim, I quickly want to touch on his potential off the ball. Suggs had the ball in his hands quite a bit at Gonzaga, but when he was either cutting to the basket or playing above the rim, the results were encouraging. At the NBA level, Suggs should be able to play both on and off the ball. He is a decent cutter, and as I will detail in a little bit, cannot be relied on right now to have the ball in his hands all of the time. Because despite all of the damage that Suggs can cause getting downhill, the truth is, he has some improvement areas in this department. Earlier, I touched on how Suggs' makeup as a player, his explosiveness, and physicality were key in how he excelled in the open court. At the same time though, he is a little bit too reliant on those natural gifts. Sometimes, Suggs can put his head down and just try to steamroll his way to the basket. This can often work because he is so good at it, but it is not an answer to everything. Right now, Suggs could do with a little bit more finesse. If you game plan or adapt during the game to specifically guard for Suggs' hard attacks to the rim, you can do a decent job stifling him. For example, his change of speed is great right now, but the change of direction is improvable. Here against Iowa, Suggs does not quite get the Euro step completely and gets blocked. Something similar plays out against Kansas as he brings the ball up and commits the offensive foul. The context at Gonzaga helped mask this deficiency at the basket because they had so many other threats around the floor, specifically the outside shooting with Corey Kispert, Joel Ayayi, and Andrew Nembhard. That is not at all to say that Suggs was bad in college. He finished 64% of his shots at the rim, a good number. However, Suggs could encounter some trouble at the next level where he will not have such a great physical advantage. At times, he failed to finish over size and length and proved himself to be a little too one-dimensional. In general, my main concern with Suggs right now is his limitations in the half court. If there are no driving lanes or big spaces for Suggs to exploit, he can get pretty quiet. The spacing will be better in the NBA than in college basketball, but it is still a valid question to ask. Suggs is a drive-first type of player right now, and while he is a willing shooter, it is not always the option he chooses. Let's go through some examples. Against San Diego, the Toreros form a 4-man wall when Suggs comes off the screen. He tries to find the corner 3 among the crowd, but the delivery is off and it ends in a turnover. Versus Santa Clara, Suggs is once again facing 4 defenders, the 3 waiting for him off the screen, plus his original defender. He kills his dribble and turns the ball over once more. As you can tell, Suggs faced a lot of attention. Gonzaga's game against Santa Clara embodied this. Suggs was seeing so many bodies every time he tried to turn the corner. The first time, he already sees his path to the rim blocked off by 5 defenders. He gives up the ball, but it's even worse when he gets it back since they're almost in a sort of 2-3 zone exclusively against him. Suggs ends up passing, and the possession wraps up with a miss. Other times when he is not facing a ton of defenders, it is simply that Suggs is still developing as a shooter. He can be too hesitant at times, which can lead to him picking up his dribble and letting the possession go to waste. Suggs could really benefit from adding a mid-range jumper, as I will get into later, or even just a runner or floater type of shot. Against Pepperdine, Suggs settles for a tough 3 when the drive is not available, and Gonzaga ends up conceding down the other end. As you can probably tell, Suggs still has some work to do on his shot. He shot 75% from the free throw line, for example, which is below what you want from a point guard. But more importantly, he only shot 34% from 3. Again, you want more than that. However, I am not that worried. There is nothing wrong mechanically with his shot. Suggs has a clean, fairly quick release that I expect will eventually translate to better percentages. More than that, even though he can sometimes hesitate to shoot, I generally like his confidence. Suggs shot a high volume of 3s at Gonzaga, taking the 2nd most overall on the team. He is not afraid to let it fly and usually keeps shooting even when the triples are not falling in. That being said, I do think he has to keep developing as a spot-up shooter. Part of the appeal with Suggs is that he should be able to play both on and off the ball. Making open 3s in catch-and-shoot situations such as the ones we just saw is a necessity for that. Still, I am a believer in Suggs' 3-point shot. I already said that I don't really see anything wrong with it. Beyond that though, it is his willingness, like I said, to take and make high difficulty shots. Obviously, the percentages still aren't there. However, Suggs has shown that he can take 3s running into them, pulling up from deep, or even being shifty with a little step back. Suggs does not shy away from taking these types of triples, and I think that everything should come together in the future. Of course, there's a difference in upside between Suggs shooting his current 34% and getting up to a league average 37% for instance, but nothing makes me think that will not be the case. I do think that there is one particular type of 3 that Suggs will need to take at the NBA level though. I mentioned this in my Sharif Cooper video, but the same idea applies to Suggs. When defenses go under the screen and dare him to shoot, he needs to be able to make them pay. If defenders can sag off of him, that in turn closes the driving lane Suggs wants, and if he is not able to shoot it, it limits what his team can do as a whole. These are tough shots, but I think he will be able to make them. After all, he has good balance and mechanics. Plus, the defense is giving him plenty of space and time. In fact, Suggs has already shown glimpses of being able to make defenses pay. Like I said, he is comfortable stepping into his shot, and there's nothing wrong with it. With enough reps, Suggs should get this shot down and make himself a more consistent threat from beyond the arc. When this happens, teams will not be as willing to clog the paint, so it will also open up his driving. Another thing which will also be important is the pull-up 2. This is another shot that should be available to Suggs as long as defenses go under screens or are not that worried about him shooting. I think that the Gonzaga guard has some similarities to Lonzo Ball when it comes to this. This shot, or lack thereof, has been key for Lonzo in the NBA, so I think that Suggs might see similar treatment, at least at first. At Gonzaga, he made a very respectable 42% of his 2-point jumpers with virtually none being assisted. I want to see this continue in the NBA so that teams can account for the pull-ups and not be singularly focused on the drives. In any case, some of the weaknesses that Suggs shows in the half court will be offset by his great passing. Suggs is not only talented as a playmaker in transition, he can also create for others against a set defense. Suggs is just a very solid passer. He averaged under 5 assists per game at Gonzaga, but keep in mind that they had lots of playmakers on the floor at once. He did not turn the ball over too much, and more importantly, Suggs tended to make the correct reads. What I appreciate the most about his passing is that Suggs never lets the ball stick in his hands. He is not one to pound the ball for 20 seconds before doing something or just stand around with it. Everything he does is quick and with a purpose. Suggs is able to quickly scan the floor and execute. He showed off great synergy with big man Drew Timme, feeding him on entry passes that maybe look easy, but are actually quite hard given the attention both of them command. If not, Suggs can also hit skip passes, find cutters, or get his teammates easy looks under the basket. Outside of that, Suggs is also adept in the pick and roll. He is a very good passer with excellent timing. Once he attracts the defense, Suggs has no problem finding the screener. He can probe into the paint before dishing off the final pass, or find the big with an on-target pocket pass. Suggs delivers these assists with accuracy, but he is also quite cunning. Often, he will disguise his intentions until the last moment or hit a perfect no-look pass. This is the case against San Francisco. Just when no one is looking at Kispert, Suggs finds the pass between two defenders for the assist. Or against San Diego, it seems like Suggs is going to rise into the pull-up. Instead, he lets the ball go at the peak for the pass to Timme. Suggs has also shown some more advanced reads. Here, he initially rejects the screen and then finds the 3 after attracting the double. Or here, he uses the pick and roll to instead find the skip pass to Ayayi in the far corner for the 3. Defensively, there is a lot to like about Jalen Suggs, but let's start with what has become his signature play of sorts. I am referring to Suggs playing in the passing lanes and coming away with the steal. It is unusual for a player, let alone a 19-year-old like Suggs, to have a trademark on the defensive end of the floor, but he managed to do it during his few months at Gonzaga. Suggs is just absolutely relentless in his pursuit of the basketball. He can spot passes before they happen and pounce on them. I have no information about this, but I would not be surprised if this skill was related to his football background. Either way, Suggs has an uncanny knack for this. Even when it does not pay off, you will see him put his body on the line. And when these steals do come off, the results are spectacular. He is obviously quick enough to get the steal, but then he can go up the court and either dunk or come up with some really tough finishes. Watch against Pepperdine as Suggs tips the ball to himself and then finishes with the two-handed flush. Overall, Suggs can rack up steals. He averaged 2 per game for Gonzaga, and I think his eye for the basketball will translate to the NBA. Maybe he will not be able to gamble as much at times, but I am not worried about his capacity to make defensive plays. I also buy into Suggs' potential to act as a rim protector at times. He still needs to be more consistent, as he only got under half a block per game. But in all fairness, teams will not really demand this from a guard. Anything that he adds in this department will be a nice bonus. Suggs has shown that he can come over from the weak side and alter or block shots. His unforgiving pursuit of the ball also extends to individual defense. Suggs can be a nightmare to come up against. He gets down in a stance and moves his hips easily, meaning that he has no problems keeping up with either guard position. Suggs is annoying because if he is locked in, there is not much you can do to shake him. He has the size and athleticism. The only thing he is missing is length, but I would argue that it is not much of a problem given his eye for the ball. Watch against San Diego as Suggs is hounding his defender as soon as he crosses half court and forces the turnover with the over and back. Then, against BYU, it is too easy for Suggs to keep up with the drive and meanly reject a shot. Suggs has all the tools to be a great positional defender, and given his size and build, I think he has the upside to eventually be one of the premier guard defenders in the league. The only thing that's missing is consistency. When locked in, Suggs is a tremendous individual defender like we just saw. The problem is, he's not always as engaged. This is not a worry for me. There are times where his motor could be better or he could make more of a second effort. At the same time though, how many players, let alone 19-year-olds, are always dialed in? The answer to that is few, but that is what separates those few and makes them great. I think Suggs has this type of potential to wreak havoc as a defensive playmaker, so it will be interesting to see his evolution on this side of the basketball once he is finally in the NBA. I am a believer in all of Jalen Suggs' tools, be it his speed, his athleticism, his passing, his driving, although he still needs to get a little bit craftier, but generally, I buy into all of those tools. If that's the case, then why do I have him behind Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, and Jalen Green? Well, I think the one difference to me, the one main takeaway from all of the video that I've watched on Suggs and the other three, is that Suggs struggles a lot more in a half-court setting. Obviously, if you pack the defense against someone, if you pack the paint, and you give them no spaces to go, it's going to be difficult. And a lot of the time, that's what Suggs was dealing with at Gonzaga. At the same time though, I feel confident that Jalen Green or Cade Cunningham can step up, pull up into a shot, maybe some sort of fadeaway, pull up from beyond the arc, whereas Evan Mobley, well, he's always going to have that size advantage, and I feel pretty confident in his work in the post. With Suggs, he is the one out of those top four that needs the most development in the half court. I think that he will get there and he will be an extremely valuable player in the NBA. But for now, that's what makes him top 4 for me, rather than top 3, 2, or 1. As always, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, make sure to leave a comment telling me what you think of Jalen Suggs, and if you enjoy the channel, if you want to see more videos, make sure to subscribe. Take care, and I'll see you guys next time.